Hello, this is the Truth Seeker. We're beginning the video part 2.2 on the Council of the Gods. In this video, I'm going to be focusing more on the name Elyon. And the first thing I'd like to point out is that you'll see that in parentheses I have put the alternative spelling here, Alyon. In other words, beginning with an A and not with an E. The reason I'm doing that is because I'd like to point out the fact that the term itself in Hebrew and in Ugaritic begins with the letter Ayin, and as shown in previous videos, the character for the god El is simply represented by the lamed, or the lambda, which in English transliteration is simply the letter L. The E, or the I guess you could say sound, which most scholars have transliterated as ill in the Ugaritic, is simply a grammar rule in regard to the lambda being by itself. The actual letter E, or the equivalent in Ugaritic, is not there. And so some people might think of the name El, or the word El, as being related to the word or name Elyon. But there's a possibility, but in all likelihood, when we see the character Ayin, we're seeing a word and name that is completely unique from the name El. So now, looking at the name Elyon, it would seem there is at least one inscription which appears to differentiate it between the god El, or Il, and Elyon. This is actually Alyon. But scholars are also stating that this could refer to the same god. Okay. They're saying that in this little section here referenced in the Wikipedia link, we'll just scroll down here to the Sefire I treaty area, and you can see right here in the very first sentence, outside of the biblical text, the term Most High occurs seldom. Okay. The most controversial is the earliest of three Aramaic treaty inscriptions found at Al-Safirah, 16 miles southeast of Aleppo. The Sefire I inscription dates to about 750 BC. It lists major patron deities, all of them in pairs, coupled by and. In each case, a male god and the god's spouse when the names are known. Then after that, a gap comes Il and Alyon. Okay, and you'll notice the little character, which looks like a superscript C. That's actually a representation of the letter Ayin. And you're not going to see that over here on the name Il, but you will see it on Alyon. Now, regarding this Arabic list of El and Elyon, possibly means El and Alyon, seemingly also two separate gods. Okay, so followed by further pairs of deities. Also possible that these indicate two aspects of the same god, or it might be a single divine name. See, now they show an example here. For instance, in the Ugaritic Texts, there are names like Kothar wa Kasis, which means skillful and clever, Mat wa Shar, which means death and prince, or possibly death and destruction. Then there's a Nikal and Ib, which is in origin the name of the Sumerian goddess Ningal, combined with an element of unknown meaning. So that would be the Ningal, and then this would be the element of unknown meaning. So therefore they're saying that El wa Alyon might be a single name, such as God and highest, identical in meaning with the biblical El Elyon, even though this would be unique. Okay, but what they're saying is, even though that it wouldn't follow the pattern of the list of gods being separate gods, which is kind of a hard case to make. But we're going to get into this. And by the way, this particular definition, God and highest, it's not really exactly identical to the biblical El Elyon. This would be more like God Most High. So it's similar, but then you have this character, the Vav, which it's not in the Hebrew. So in the Hebrew, you just see the conjunction. I mean, you see it combined just together, El Alyon. But in the Ugaritic, or in this case in the Sefire I inscription in the Aramaic, you do see the Wa, or the Vav, bringing the two elements together. So it is a little different. And so let's go back to the presentation here. And the next section, we'll be looking at a book section here called El in the Ugaritic Texts by Marvin H. Pope, where he is saying that Elyon is speculated to be the father of El. And also that Elyon, the name, is not found in the Ugaritic. Okay? And that's significant because we're talking about the Canaanite culture here, and there's a claim that Alyon is the same as El in the Ugaritic. So let's take a look at this link here. And so this is chapter 5, entitled Elyon and El in the Baal Shamim, where in the very first paragraph, it looks like about the second sentence, Marvin states, although Alyon is not mentioned in the Ugaritic texts. Right there. Okay. The problem of his relationship to El is posed by the compound El Elyon in Genesis and in the Psalms. Okay, so basically these two areas in these chapters and verses, we see the compound El Elyon, but aside from that, we don't see that compound. We don't see the compound. We do see the name Elyon used independently, or in combination with like Elohim or Yahweh. We see a term, sons of Alyon. So that's interesting. Now, when we move on down where he begins to talk about the Sefire I inscription, you see he says here, in the Sunjin 1 inscription, this is another pronunciation of the name Sefire, and we see him talking about the compounds here, Kathar, Wa, Hasis, and he's going over those particular references in the Ugaritic compounds that we discussed earlier. So one might be inclined to assume that the reference is to a single deity. Okay. But if this were so, it would constitute the only parallel to the Ugaritic divine names of this pattern. Okay. But it is virtually certain that El and Alyon are intended as distinct deities in the Sunjin inscription, okay, as they are in the account of Philo of Byblos. According to Philo of Byblos, Elyon, which is this in the Greek, I assume, Hephaestus was the father of Epichios, or Autochthon, later called Oranos. The latter married his sister G and begot Elos, also called Kronos. Thus, Elyon is represented as the grandfather of El. Okay? And not the father, as apparently assumed by Desad, who suggests that El Elyon means El, son of Alyon. But what Philos is stating is that Alyon is actually the grandfather of El. And this tradition preserved by Philo of Byblos, that there was an intermediate stage between Elyon and El, in which the sovereignty was held by Oranos, is now confirmed by the Hurrian myths. Okay? Is now confirmed by the Hurrian myths in the Hittite language, dating from circa 13th century BC, in which the order of divine succession corresponds exactly to that given by Philo of Byblos. So here we have the Hurrian, which is the Hittite tradition, and here we have Phoenician, which is Philo. And we can see the correspondences here of Alalu to Alyon, Anu to Oranos, Kumarbi to El or Kronos, Teshub, storm god, who is corresponded to Hadad, which is Baal in the Ugaritic, Zeus, Damaros in the Phoenician. So this is very interesting. Yeah, it's quite the opposite of what a lot of people are claiming. I find it interesting because if we look at it from a Jewish point of view, Elyon being the most high God, having other divine beings that he's created, eventually El being one of them, who ends up being the god that the Canaanites are worshiping. Anyway, that's just a speculation, but it's very intriguing. And here we go here. This is another link to the Sefire I God-List. This was in the Chicago Journal. The article is The First Pair of Deities and the Sefire I God-List. Author Michael L. Barre. Source Journal of Near Eastern Studies, Volume 44, Number 3, July 1985. Pages 205 to 210. And we'll scroll down here to page 206. Okay. And here we have the Sefire I God-List, which is transliterated. This is the Aramaic transliterated. And these are the gods that are listed, connected with the Wa. And here you can see there's a break. They start here in part 2. El, Wa, Alyon, right there. Okay, and you notice there's the little symbol for the letter Ayin on Alyon. You'll notice that the symbol's not there for the name El or Il. In fact, this is just a symbol notating the vowel sound, which is not really represented in the Ugaritic. And I don't know if it's represented in the Arabic, but the Aramaic, but we'd have to look at an actual photograph of this inscription, which I haven't been able to dig up yet. But this is sufficient. This is sufficient to look at, and it shows us how it's put together here. Let me go back to the list here. Now, is Alyon in the Ugaritic? No. Okay. Elyon seems to be a unique term in the Hebrew. Other than the Sefire I inscription of the list of gods, which is in Aramaic, not Ugaritic, in which Alyon is listed, there does not seem to be a lot of information outside of the Hebrew text. Also, it's important to note that the Sefire I inscription is dated to around 750 BC and written in Aramaic, while the Ugaritic religious texts are dated between 1450 to 1200 BC and written in Ugaritic. Now that makes the Sefire I inscription roughly 700 to 450 years after the Ugaritic texts. Essentially, the name Alyon is not in the Canaanite religious texts, but the critics have gone to great lengths to draw parallels between Alyon and Il, when it seems clear that this term might only be referenced twice in the Ugaritic religious texts as a variation on the word, but only in regard to Il's son Baal, and not Il himself. And so that's what we're going to be getting into in the next section.